Acts chapter 13, verse 34 said, "For this is so good. For God had promised to raise him from the dead, not leaving him to rot in the grave." I love that. That God promised that he was not going to leave his son to rot in the grave. And it goes on to say that he said, "I will give you the sacred blessings I promised to David." Then goes on in verse 35 to say, another psalm explains more fully, "You will not allow your Holy One to rot in the grave." The reason that this is so important, the reason that we need to grab onto this, not just with our head, but with our heart, is that there are things in our life that sometimes feel like they're rotting away. There are things in your life that sometimes feel like there's just rot eating away. Some of you came into Easter service, and I know you're nice, and I know you're wonderful, and you come in and you're smiling, and you do all the Christian things and all that kind of thing, but I know some of your stories, and I know some of the things that you're dealing with, and I know the things that you're putting away in the very back of your heart, and it feels like rot is starting to eat away at those. And I want to let you know this morning that God promises that rot will not eat away those things, that they will not be allowed to die. They will not be allowed to rot away in your life. There are things in your life that might feel like they're not going so well right now, but if the resurrection says anything, it says that the beginning doesn't mean it's always going to stay like that. How it started is not how it finishes. And so if there's anything in the resurrection that teaches us something about faith and about hope, and that even though things don't look good right now, that doesn't mean that that's the end of the story. It doesn't mean it's the end of the story. And I promise that if we let faith start anchoring into not our head but our heart, those things start becoming real in our life. I want to read this. This is John chapter 20. I want to talk about a couple of people this morning. John chapter 20, verse 24 says, one of the 12 disciples, Thomas, nicknamed the twin. Okay, so I said in first service, I was like, when I read that, nicknamed the twin, I said, oh, what a terrible nickname, the twin. Like, come on, get a little more creative. Literally after service, one of our leaders that works in the coffee bar came and said, "Hey, I'm a twin." I was like, "Oh, cool." And he was like, "And my nickname's the twin." And I was thinking in my head, you've got to be kidding me. How does that work out? It's a beautiful nickname. Could not think of a better one. Was not with the others when Jesus came. They told him, "We have seen the Lord." I don't know if you've ever been told by somebody or had somebody explain to you faith, but you just don't get it like they're getting it. This was Thomas. They said, "We've seen the Lord," but he replied, "I won't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hand, put my fingers into them, and place my hand into the wound in his side." 8 days later, the disciples were together again, and this time Thomas was with them. The doors were locked, but suddenly as before, Jesus was standing among them. That is awesome. And just so you know, all of my Star Trek fans, transporter, yeah, it was right here before anything ever happened in Star Trek. So all of my 12 people that love sci-fi, that's for you. Easter, bam, you got it. Some of you are like, what is a transporter? Talk to somebody who's wearing a t-shirt that says, "I love Star Wars." They'll tell you everything you need to know. Verse 27, then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. Look at my hands. Put your hand into the wound in my side. Don't be faithless any longer. Believe." "My Lord and my God," Thomas explained. I want to make sure that we understand the importance of what Thomas was experiencing. Because some of us, hey, for some of you, you are fast to faith. That's awesome. You jumped on the faith train. You were like, "I love God. I got the t-shirt. I got the band CD. I'm ready to go. I listen to worship all the time. I mean, I can preach every sermon. I love everything. It's awesome. It's great." That is great and awesome and way to be a super Christian. But there are some others of us who battle with faith sometimes. there's some other of us who let doubt kind of get the upper hand a lot of times in our mind, and it seeps down into our heart, and we have fights with what God says to believe in. And a lot of us maybe could maybe feel a little more like Thomas than we do the other disciples when they said, we have seen Jesus. But Thomas says, I'm not believing that. I can't believe that. In fact, I need him to be right in front of me so I can put my hand in his wounds, and I can put my hand in the nail-scarred hands of Jesus. I want to put my finger through it. I want to put my hand through it. I want to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm not tricked, that this isn't some kind of ruse, that I'm not believing in something that doesn't cost me my life. I need to see him. I think some of us more put ourselves in Thomas's camp sometimes. And what I would say to us is, I would say that maybe we don't need more words, and we don't need to believe in more words, but we need to feel more wounds. Some of us don't need to hear more words. We need to feel wounds. What does that mean? It means that some of you are not going to be talked into faith. There's not enough sermons. There's not enough people coming to you and saying, we've seen Jesus, or look at this, or oh, you should believe, or you've heard all the words. You've heard them all. But you don't need words. You need something more sustainable than that. And I don't know if you've ever felt like that, but I have. I felt like, I grew up in church, and I know maybe it's not the coolest thing to say or awesome job security to say as a pastor. Sometimes you doubt. But man, I've had my doubts. And I've realized that when I've had some of those doubts, the thing that has helped me get through them is not more words. It's me being closer so I can actually touch who Jesus is. I needed something that I could feel. I needed something I could actually get around. So let me give you the example. I love barbecue. It's like Jesus, my wife, Watson, my son, barbecue. It's just, I don't know if you like barbecue like I like barbecue, but somebody in first service came up and said, you need to not go to your family's house for Easter. Come to our house. We're having barbecue by the pool. I'm like, man, come on. That's Easter to me. I'll grab a rib and a Speedo in a second and be over to that house. What? Y'all, you're picturing it right now. You're welcome. So, Jesus help us. So, but I love a barbecue. I love it. Like I'm thinking, Joe Denny, right over here with the Denny's, sitting here. Man, that guy can smoke some barbecue. If you want some good, sneak over to their house. They got tons of rooms. They love you, all of them. Just talk to them. Andy will have everybody over. She loves it. Barbecue is awesome. So when I left Texas, now see, Texas has good barbecue, has really good barbecue. There's some really good barbecue joints in Texas. If you've never gone, you need to go. But when we moved up to Oklahoma, I was like, Oklahoma, you better bring something, because I need some good ribs in my life, because that's going to hurt my faith if I don't have good barbecue. And so now there's some good places around here. It's awesome. But everybody kept talking about Burnco. And I kept hearing Burnco. And I was like, that's a weird name. And everybody's like talking about it. I'm sure it's not that good. And I went, dear Jesus. All of a sudden, the heavens opened up with rivers flowing of barbecue sauce. I got in there like they had. Listen, if you've not gone, you need to go. If any of you work at Burnco that are listening online right now, you need to sponsor me, because I will tout your name. We were in line. We had this huge line, and they came by with free ribs as you waited. What in the, that's top notch right there. Before you order, here you go. And I was thinking, this is how you grow a church. We don't need to be, see, some of you here for the first time, you got those bags out there, we're changing it. You came on the wrong Sunday. You should come next Sunday. You're not going to get a bag, you're going to get a rack of ribs. We're going to give you, listen, you're going to, I love you to find me, you know, with a rib, just, I mean, that's church. I forgot my point because I was thinking about the ribs. No, I know this. Once I had that rib, they had me. I got up there, I was like, give me all of them. I don't know what you got, but get them all. They're so good. I got done eating. I was telling everybody, Burnco, man, Burnco, you gotta, I mean, they just got all this stuff, but you just gotta go. Because words weren't enough for me. I needed to taste it. So, some of you with doubts, words can't be enough for you. You gotta taste it. So how do you get close? You be in the room like Thomas was. He wasn't in the room the first time, but dadgummit was he in there the second time, because he's like, I'm not missing it. I know you guys are talking about Jesus being there, so the next time you guys order pizza and you're hanging out, you better invite me. Because I got to be in the room. I got to see if you're talking, you just guys are crazy, or if this is really true. And all of a sudden, he's in the room. Jesus is in the room. Everything changes. Why? Because he's like, Jesus, what I love is Jesus wasn't afraid of his doubts. What did he do? Hey, Thomas, put it right here. Put it right here. Stop now. Stop with your doubts. Believe, because I'm right here. Jesus is big enough to handle your doubts. Jesus is big enough to handle the things that you feel like you can't bring to him. It's not like he doesn't know what you're thinking anyway. It's not like you're like, well, me and God, we're not speaking right now. He knows your heart. He knows everything that's going on in your life anyway, so you might as well bring your doubts to him and just be in the room. Go all in. So some of us, it's not that our doubts are too strong, it's our seeking is too weak. Is that you haven't gone all in. You got to go all in. Some of you are at the end of the pool saying it's too cold. It's too cold. You know how it's not too cold? One of your friends pushes you in. And then it's freezing for a second, and then you're like, you know, it's kind of nice. All in. So if you got doubts, awesome. Bring them to church with you every Sunday. Stick your behind in one of those seats and say, you know what, I got doubts, but I'm here. I'm in the room. Get into a connect group. Open up your Bible. Oh, I don't understand it. That's okay. Read it anyway. Start in John. Read the Psalms. If you want to read some people that got some messed up emotions, read through the Psalms. Some of you would be like, I feel like that. I want to kill people. Wow. That guy David's on point. Yeah, you read through. He's got some emotional issues. But you know what God said about David? He's a man after his own heart. So you can bring everything to God, but here's what you can't bring to God: a half-hearted search. Because you won't find him. You got to go all in with your doubts. Thomas, you got to be in the room. And this is why Jeremiah says in chapter 29, says, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. All your heart. Go all in. Now, some of you might be feeling, well, that's fine for some people that have doubts about God, but that's not my story. I believe that God is real, but I just don't believe he cares. See, there's two different doubts. Because some can believe that God's not real, but some believe, I believe he's real, I just don't believe he cares. Because if he cares, why does it feel like all hell's breaking loose in my life? Because that doesn't feel very godly. And John chapter 20 talks about this. It says Mary was standing outside the tomb crying. And I want all of us to see that picture. See, we look at the tomb, and even on Easter, we use that as a celebration tool. Say, Jesus, he defeated the tomb, defeated death. Woohoo! Easter, break out the candy. This is awesome. Because we know the end of the story. Mary didn't. So the tomb wasn't something that she celebrated. It was something that she cried at. Because everything that she loved and everything that changed her life was gone and was taken from her. And it wasn't that it was something that she could just go back to and say, that was a great part of my life. Literally, people had stolen the body of Jesus, she thought. And so now, everything that she had put her heart into felt like it was gone, and why is my life feeling like it's broken when it shouldn't? And Mary was standing outside the tomb crying, and as she wept, she stooped and looked in. She saw two white-robed angels, one sitting at the head and the other at the foot of the place where the body of Jesus had been lying. In verse 13, it says this, says, "Dear woman, why are you crying?" The angels asked her. "Because they've taken away my Lord," she replied, "and I don't know where they have put him." Verse 14 says she turned to leave and saw someone standing there, and it was Jesus. But she didn't recognize him. How many times you don't recognize Jesus when you're hurting? I'm going to say that again. How many times you don't recognize Jesus when you're hurting? There's some moments where Jesus is right there in your life, but you're so much wound up in your own hurt, you can't even see who he is. And that's not to make you feel bad. That's just a reality. That hurt can kind of disfigure the way you see things. Verse 15, dear woman, why are you crying? Jesus asked her, "Who are you looking for?" She thought he was the gardener. "Sir," she said, "if you have taken him away, tell me where you've put him, and I will go and get him." She was so distraught that he was gone, that she was going to go get him. You don't understand the Jewish customs of the time. If she was going to go touch a dead body, it would make her so unclean. She wasn't fit for worship for so many days. I mean, there was just so much that she wasn't, but she was busting through all of that just because I care about what he was in my life. She cared so much. Verse 16 says, "Mary," Jesus said. She turned to him and cried out, "Rabboni," which is Hebrew for teacher. "Don't cling to me," Jesus said, "for I haven't ascended to the Father, but go find my brothers, tell them I'm ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." In verse 18, Mary Magdalene found the disciples, told them, "I have seen the Lord." And then she gave them his message. What do you do when you feel like heaven is hiding and all you see is hell? What do you do when you feel like heaven is hidden and all you see is hell? How do you respond to that? Because that's what Mary was falling into right now. There's so many times where we don't understand that heaven is right behind the thing that we can't see. And heaven can hide in places where we only see hell. It's true. And Mary only saw her absolute pain and torment because this was a man who believed in her when no one else believed in her. This was a man who, the Bible said, cast out 7 demons from her life. And now she was free. I can't even comprehend the thought of knowing my life used to be tormented by evil spirits. And because of this man, I am now free. I can think the way I want. I can believe the way I want. I can act the way I want. I have freedom. I don't know if you could ever put yourself in her shoes. And now that man has been killed. And she's crying at the front of a tomb because she doesn't even see the body. She can't even take care of the body. And this that Mary is feeling is not only something that Mary has felt. All of us have felt this too. We felt this. Every time you faced a miscarriage, you felt that. Every time a marriage was broken because of unfaithfulness, you felt that. Every time a parent wasn't a parent to you, but abused you in ways that no parent ever should, you felt that. The moment that you reached out and tried to live that dream that everybody said wouldn't happen, and then it kind of crashed and burned, and you felt like it was all your fault, you felt that. You've felt that when you've looked at a family member who has health issues and you can't fix them. You felt that. See, this is not just Mary that's crying at the tomb. All of us have cried at the tomb. And I don't know if it's been the tomb of your dreams, the tomb of your relationships, the tomb of your family, the tomb of your finances, and tomb of your all the different things that you could wrap up, the tomb of depression, the tomb of emotional stability, the tomb that feels like you cannot break out of it, and that death has now put a period at the end of a sentence that you thought was just the start. And I'm telling you, we've all been there. It's not just Mary. It's not just us feeling bad for her. I don't want us to give her our pity. I want us to give her our empathy, because we actually feel like she felt. Because all of us have felt that. But see, if all of us have felt that, I want to let you know that the same story can happen in your life too. That the crying at the tomb doesn't have to be the end. That heaven is hiding where you only see hell. That this is not the end of the story for you, and it's not the end of the story for me. And even though you're crying at this moment, do you know that there are angels sitting in the place that you only see death? And do you know that Jesus is right around the corner where you can't even see him? And there are heavenly things happening in a moment where you only think there's death. There's heavenly things happening. There's God's hand is moving in your life. And I know that you can't see it right now because your hurt has blinded you to seeing the hand of God in your life and seeing heaven move in your life. But I want to let you know, and I want to encourage you as I encourage myself, that heaven is moving when I can't see it, and God's hand is moving even when I can't see it. And there's things that are happening that I can't explain, and there's things that are going on in a plan and a purpose that God sees that I cannot see, and there are things that God knows that I cannot know, but he is moving in these places. And the reason I can be so steadfast in this, because I have felt this before, and I'm sure I'm going to feel it again. But there was a moment where all Jess and I wanted was to have a family, and all we wanted to do was to have a baby, and we wanted to be pregnant so badly, but it never happened. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but the feeling that you can't have what you want the most will just about break you. And everything else in your life just doesn't have the sheen that it should. And it feels like there's just a darkness around everything. And even though we were excited for every new baby that was coming into our friends' lives and people's lives, we always had in the back of our mind also saying, God, when is it our turn? Because right now we're kind of feeling like heaven's hiding and all we see is hell. And then we thought, well, we'll adopt. And so we went down that road, and it looked like we had an adoption that was going to work out. And then all of a sudden that fell through. And then the next one was even worse. And just, I mean, things that you wouldn't even believe were happening as we were trying to start a family. And it got so bad, we decided we're just stopping. And you know what? It's fine. And we're just going to take a break. And personally, I never told Jess this, but personally, I was just thinking, you know what, God, I know you know what we desire, but I love my wife. I'm thankful for her. I'm thankful for our church. I'm thankful for our families and different things. And if it's not in our cards, I'll be heartbroken, but I'll be okay. And I was starting to make my peace with it, and it's in that moment that we got a phone call that changed our life. And about 5 months from there, we were holding our newborn son in our hands. And I wonder if there was a moment in that darkness. I wonder if there's a moment in that darkness where Jess and I felt like Mary crying at the tomb. I wonder in that moment was God was saying, you don't see what I see. What you see is what you don't have. What I see is your son. You see me not moving, but what you don't see is my hand has been moving the whole time. You don't see it because you're hurt, and that's okay. You don't have to put on a show for me, but just know that I'm working in the behind the scenes, that I'm working in the places that you don't see anymore. And just because you don't see me does not mean that I'm not moving. I am actually moving. There is actually new life that's forming. There's actually new things that are happening, new dreams that you can believe again. The tomb does not have to be the end. The cross does not have to be the end. There is something on the other side of this that you see, that even though you see hell, heaven is right around the corner. You don't have to put on a show for God. He can handle all your emotions. But I want to let you know, and I want to encourage you, that heaven, even though it might be hiding right now, there's something happening in your life, in my life. The thing that changed it, the thing that I love so much is when Jesus turned and said her name, Mary. He didn't say Magdalene, which is who probably everybody else called her, because you only called people that had such a normal name Mary back then by where they came from. But notice he didn't use that. He didn't call her Magdalene. He said Mary. And I wonder, this is just my thoughts. I wonder in the back of Jesus' mind if he was saying, I want to call you who you are going to be, not who you used to be. I want to call you by the name that points to your future, not points to your past. I want to call you by the name that I know and I've created you to be, not the distortion of what you've lived through in this past. And in that moment when he said Mary, notice that she saw him. Speaking to Mary's heart, he's starting to speak to your heart, and he's starting to awaken your heart to who he is. And some of you might, right at this moment, seeing him for the very first time again.